Hello, welcome to this video. I am Melanie Alejandra Hernandez Reinaga, and I will talk to you about the cell and the organelles of the animal and plant cell. To start, the cell is the basic structural and functional unit of all living beings. In addition, it is important to highlight four aspects about cells. Number one, cells are complex and highly organized. These vital units have internal parts in specific positions. Number two, cells possess the ability to replicate. Cells replicate by division. A mother cell are divided between two daughter cells. Number three, cells obtain energy. To maintain the cell's high degree of organization and complexity and to sustain its metabolism, the cell needs a constant supply of energy. Number four, cells interact with the environment. Cells possess various structures on their surface, which act as receptors through which various external agents generate specific responses in the cell. Now, as for the structure and function of the cell, we have the following. All cells share three basic structural features. Number one, they are independent units consisting of a membrane. The membrane's function is to surround the cell and acts as a border or boundary with the outside environment. Number two, all cells contain cytoplasm. The membrane encloses the cytoplasm, which is a mixture of jelly-like fluid and a variety of structures called organelles that are suspended in it. The fluid portion of the cytoplasm is called the cytosol. The organelles suspended in the cytosol are highly specialized structures that carry out various metabolic functions of the cell. And number three, all cells contain and begin life with genetic material, particularly deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA, which in the form of segments called genes stores the information to make new cells and all internal components. On the other hand, as for animal and plant cells, we have similar structures but with certain differences. Next, we have both types of cells. The animal has centrioles, nuclear membrane, chromatin, microvilli, lysosomes, nucleolus, mitochondria, nucleus, plasma membrane, rough endoplasmic reticulum, smooth endoplasmic reticulum, ribosome, Golgi complex, cytoplasms, and microtubules. And on the other hand, the plant has chromatin, nucleolus, rough endoplasmic reticulum, cytoskeleton, ribosome, cell plasma membrane, chloroplast, central vacuole, peroxisome, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, cytoplasm, smooth endoplasmic reticulum, and nucleus. First of all, the cell membrane. All cells are surrounded by membranes with a similar basic structure consisting of a lipid bilayer with proteins attached. The current model that explains the construction of cell membranes is the fluid mosaic model. The fluid mosaic model considers the cell membrane a double layer of compacted phospholipid molecules with various proteins embedded to form a mosaic. The nucleus houses the DNA in its interior and consists of three main parts: the nuclear envelope, the chromatin, and the nucleolus. The cytoplasm is the space between the hereditary material and the plasma membrane. Now, as for the organelles that have a membrane, we have the following. endoplasmic reticulum. It is involved in the synthesis of proteins, lipids, and membrane components. Golgi complex modifies new polypeptide chains and sorts and packages proteins and lipids. Vesicles. They transport, store, or disintegrate substance in the cell. Mitochondria. They are the central producer of energy through aerobic metabolism. Lysosomes. They degrade unwanted substance. Central vacuole. It provides turgor to the cell. It contains water and waste. Chloroplasts. They are responsible for photosynthesis. Peroxisome inactivates toxins, metabolizes lipids, and protects cells for oxidative molecules. On the other hand, the organelles that do not have a membrane are the following. Ribosomes. They are sites for protein synthesis. Cytoskeleton. Support and shape the cell, which is especially important for the animal cell that has no cell wall. Centrioles. Anchorage for the cytoskeleton.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Andrea Maite Garcia, and I will talk to you about the characteristics of living things and the differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. To begin with, what are living things? These are organisms that possess the characteristic of life, such as reproduction, nutrition, and cellular organism. And the characteristics of these are growth, they increase in size. Reproduce is the process by which living things give rise to offspring. Metabolism is the building up and the breaking down of the chemical compounds. Respond to stimuli. They take changes in the environment to respond to them. Homeostasis maintain more or less constant internal environment. Evolution process by which living things change over time. Cells are made of one or more cells, possess DNA, have DNA within their cells. The next topic is the difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. First, core. The prokaryotic doesn't have a membrane above the nucleus. The eukaryotic is defined and surrounded by a membrane. Organelles. In the prokaryotic cell, there are only ribosomes, and eukaryotics do have ribosomes. There are membrane envelopes. Size. Prokaryotics don't exceed 10 micrometers, and eukaryotics generally measure more than 10 micrometers. Structure. The eukaryotic cell is more complex than the prokaryotic cell. Evolution. Prokaryot- Prokaryotes are the first to develop, while eukaryotics evolved later than prokaryotes. Eukaryotic cells are the cells that make up animals and plant microbes, such as bacteria, are prokaryotic cells. The DNA of a eukaryotic cell is found in the nucleus, distributed by N chromosomes and bound to proteins. The DNA of prokaryotic cells is a circular and usually has a single origin of replication.
Hello, my name is Diego, and I'm going to talk about the history of the microscope and cell theory. So, who and when was it invented? So, in 1590, Hans and Zacharias James, they were attributed to the microscope invention, but the authorship is often disputed as there is no clear evidence, and since they were not the only ones working with lens at the time. But they are the first what made a prototype of a microscope. Robert Hooke in 1665 designed a microscope made up of three lenses. With this microscope, Hooke managed to magnify samples between 20 to 50 times their actual size. He was the first one to observe a cell, and to coin the term. For Hooke, the space where cells used to be looked like cells, and therefore this was the origin of the word. For Anton
Hooke,
van Leeuwenhoek in 1667 designed a simple microscope. It had only one lens and allowed him to magnify 200 to 300 times their original size. He was the first one to observe a living cell. Anton van Leeuwenhoek in 1600. So he made a revolutionary contributions drawing what he's looking on his microscope. So he made a revolutionary contributions drawing what Matthias Schlein observed that all vegetal tissues are made of cells. Also, Theodor Schwann observed that all animal tissues are made of cells. Matthias Schlein observed. Here I have a picture of a microscope, and we can see its parts. It have a base, arm, stage clips, coarse focusing knob, fine focusing knob, nose piece or turret, a tube, illuminator, condenser, diaphragm, object lens, a piece lens, and that's the parts of a microscope. Here I have a picture of a microscope, and we can see its parts. It have a base, arm, stage clips. Now I'm going to talk about the cell theory. Now I'm going to talk about what is a cell. A cell is the basic structural and functional unit of all living beings. So also the cell theory divides in four important parts. The first one is that all living things are made up of cells. Also, the cell theory divides in four important parts. The first one is that all living things are made up of cells. Also, the second important point is that the cell is the physiological unit of every living being. That means that the cell is the simpler thing that can be considered life. Also, the organelles and molecules are not considered alive. The, the third important point is that all cells come from another pre-existing and similar cells. The, the third important point is that all cells come from another pre-existing and similar cell. And the last one is that the cells contains hereditary material DNA for all its morphological and physiological characteristics, which will be based on its offspring cells.
now I will also talk about the different forms of cellular transport, more specifically passive and active transport. Passive transport is a cellular mechanism that allows the movement of substance across the cell membrane without expending energy, carries substance from a zone of higher concentration to a zone of lower concentration. Active transport allows cells to move substances against the concentration gradient, that is, from an area of low concentration to an area of high concentration, and spends more energy.
Osmosis. The osmosis moves water molecules through a semi-permeable membrane. Osmosis. Diffusion. Diffusion is the process by which substance move from areas of high concentrations to areas of low concentrations. Facilitated diffusion. This diffusion, the molecules diffuse across the plasma membrane with assistance from membrane proteins such as channels and carriers. Endocytosis. The endocytosis is a process that moves substance into a cell by forming vesicles from the cell membrane. Exocytosis is a process that moves large molecules out of a cell and into the extracellular space.
Hello, I'm Larissa Miretantopia Ramos and I'm going to talk about the levels of organization of the human body and the importance of the homeostasis. Have you ever wondered how our body is structured from the smallest to the most complex level? Well, let's start with the most basic level, the atom. Atoms are the smallest units of matter and are fundamental to everything around us. For example, carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen are some of the atoms that make up our cells. And when atoms combine, they form molecules. Next, molecules combine to form organelles, small structures within cells that perform specific functions. For example, mitochondria produce energy, and the nucleus stores DNA. Cells are the basic unit of life, and the human body has different types of cells, each with a vital function from the organism. The cells that work together form tissues, and there are four main types. Epithelial tissues cover the surfaces and organs. Connective tissues provide support and structure. Muscle tissues enables movement. Nervous tissues transmit signals in the body. And tissues in turn group together to create organs. And some examples include the heart, which pumps blood, and the lungs, which help us breathe. And when multiple organs work together to form similar functions, they form a system. Examples include the circulatory system, which transports blood, and the digestive system, which processes food. Finally, all the organ systems work together to form a complete organism. And thanks to this organization, our body can function efficiently in our environment. But how does our body maintain balance? This is where homeostasis comes into play, because it is the process by which our body regulates its internal environment to maintain stable conditions. Homeostasis is maintained through two types of feedbacks: negative feedback and positive feedback. Negative feedback. This is the most common mechanism and acts to counteract a change in the body. For example, when body temperature rises, the body switches to cool down and return to normal. In the positive feedback, in this case, the body amplifies a response until a goal is achieved. An example is blood clotting. When there is a wound, the body activates a series of reactions to form a clot and stop the bleeding. But in summary, our body is organized into different levels, from atoms to a complete organism, and homeostasis is key to keep us healthy.
Pregnancy is a physiological state of a woman that begins with the conception and continues with fetal development until delivery. This period is divided into 40 weeks and lasts approximately 2080 days. However, under special conditions, delivery can take place before the expected term, and not a paternal labor or after the expected term. It is important to follow a correct pregnancy control and to perform an adequate prenatal diagnosis. The following factors can lead to a high-risk pregnancy. Age. Pregnancy risks tend to be higher for pregnant people younger than 20 or older than 35. Lifestyle choices. Various lifestyle choices can put a pregnancy at risk, such as drinking alcoholic beverage, smoking or using other tobacco products, and illicit drug use. Health problems like high blood pressure, diabetes, epilepsy, thyroid disease, heart or blood disorders, poorly controlled asthma, and infections.
Surely you have heard of addictions to substances such as alcohol, tobacco, or drugs. But there are also addictions to technology, gambling, and even food. All of them have something in common. They generate a dependency that affects our personal and social life and even our health. One of the most common addictions today is addiction to social networks. Spending too much time on digital platforms can generate anxiety, isolation, and affect our self-esteem. Excessive use of social networks can lead to constant comparison with others, which can generate a distorted perception of reality and a need for external validation. The causes of addictions can be many, like stress, emotional problems, social pressure, or even genetics. And although at first they may seem harmless, over the time they can lead to serious consequences such as illness, loss of relationships, and financial problems. One of the biggest challenges with addictions is recognizing that you have a problem. Many times the person does not realize it or does not want to accept it. Therefore, it is important that as a society we learn to detect warning signs such as behavioral changes, isolation, or constant need to consume something, and try to avoid it by doing sports, learning new things, going out with friends, etc. Because all this keeps our brain to seek pleasure in a healthy way.
What is obesity? Obesity is a complex disease that consists of having too much body fat. It is a medical problem that increases the risk for many other diseases and health problems. These can include heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, liver disease, sleep apnea, and certain types of cancer.